All right. How you doing? Welcome to the Sunday night chat. I'm feeling patriotic. Thought you guys got a kick out of that. I pulled this out the other day. I did a whole video on this. I did the tale of the gun. It was a Sunday night chat. You guys should check that out. One of the things I liked about this as a kid is that from a distance, the profile of it kind of looks like a flintlock pistol. You know, my dad made this from an oak branch and an old Winchester bolt action rifle. You guys would dig that video. One of these days, the reason I pulled it out, I've been keeping it up here on the shelf. I'm gonna, I'm having fun with this with you guys, and I appreciate you all being here. By the way, my name's Mike. If you haven't been here before, and this is the Sunday night chat. I got to do like this silly. It sounds silly, but like a cosplay kind of thing with you guys, like a modern Minuteman vibe. One of these days, there's all the gear. I'll do it up for you. It'll be fun, and just the reason why I collect all these sorts of things and have all this cool stuff and the hats and everything is because I used to work as a photographer, and so having stuff, props, it's always important. At any rate, we're gonna be a little. We're gonna start off the show today. It's not a show, the talk. A little patriotically, but more in lines of what the truth is. Like not the revisionist history that even we were taught. And you guys know I kind of harp on the fact that oftentimes there's a ton of revisionist history going on in schools these days. Kids don't really know anything. It's really a shame. We don't have civics class anymore, you know? But I also want to remind you guys that I'm just a dude. There's nothing special about me. I'm just some guy sitting here by myself talking to my phone. Now, I want to quickly read an email I got last night because it's a little over the top. And this is the sort of thing that, in my opinion, as a content creator, which I never called myself that till I got over 10,000 subscribers. That's when I realized, like, oh, people want to be here. I never saw that coming. But some of you tamp it down a little bit. It's nice. It's all nice, but this guy's name is Eric. I got this last night before I went to bed, so it was a nice thing to get before I fell asleep last night. I was up kind of late. Excuse me. He says, "This is Eric again. You may know me better as Mr. Zug Ugg. So look for Mr. Zug Ugg. I was watching your last Sunday night chat video for the third time when I realized this is the second time this has happened to me. What is it that has happened? Well, the first time it happened was back in 1989-90. I was in college at the time using my GI Bill in pursuit of a degree in math. Some buddies and I would smoke a little bit, and at the end of the day, we would watch Rush Limbaugh on TV. Rush had a way of making you laugh while educating you about the ways of the Democratic Party. So this brings me to today. Today. I'm from Jersey, so I speak kind of weird. Even I hear it from time to time. Mike Z is serving up the truth, reminding me of things forgotten, and teaching new things with all with an adult comic flair. This is so entertaining and so educational. I was really saddened when Russ passed, but things are looking better with Mike Z to take his place. Keep up the good work. A lot of people are getting smarter. Some are getting angrier. Carry wherever you go. You never know. That 180-pound lesbo may carry more than a slab of bacon. Okay. So I've been getting this sort of comment. The Rush Limbaugh thing. I never watched Rush Limbaugh. I knew who he was. I only found out about him because a while ago, they would have him on when I used to watch Fox News. I used to watch Glenn Beck and stuff like that. I don't watch any news anymore. I watch one show on Fox, actually. It's called The Gutfeld Show, or just Gutfeld. I highly recommend you watch Gutfeld. DVR that, watch that every night. He just breaks it down in a very funny way. He's the #1 late night comedy show now, and he's blowing the doors off of all the established late night comedy / talk shows that have been out there, the legacy stuff, legacy media, all that. And he has great people on. At any rate, that's how I got exposed to him. I'm not that kind of guy that wants to listen to somebody just talk. That's why it's odd for me that you guys want to listen to me talk. This has only evolved because of the positive feedback I've been getting. It's not ever what I intended to be doing here on this channel. I'm just giving you what you want. But I don't. You shouldn't be listening to everything I say and just accepting it. You should be looking things up and finding it out for yourself. It's the same thing with that Alex Jones guy. I could not listen to him. I can't listen to the sound of his voice and all the stuff he was saying. That a lot of it never came true, but some of it did, and he's kind of back out there again now, and good for him. Freedom of speech. It's good. But I can't do that. I can't sit here and just listen to somebody else talk. I don't want somebody else's ideas in my brain, which brings up another thing that happened on excuse me, Facebook over the last couple days. A friend of mine did a post, and a lot of left-leaning people came out and were kind of attacking him, and I kind of went in there and was like, well, he took my comments down because I think, I was getting probably a little bit too snarky. I ended the last one with, you sound vaccinated to me, which we shouldn't do. But I just can't take it anymore. And I pointed out how, and I keep telling you guys, we have to stop watching the news, because it's not the news. They play a soundbite of something, and then a bunch of people talk about it and try to tell you what to think about it. And in this thing, this was about Doge, and I posted the interview from Bret Baier on Fox News, where it had Elon and all the heads of the Doge departments there. Very successful, wealthy people. Smart guys. They know how to make things happen. They know how to get things done. They know how to get things done. And the response I got was, oh, Rich, you're telling me not to watch the news, and then you post this from Fox News. But I had to school that person with, what I shared isn't news. That was an interview. It wasn't a soundbite with a bunch of people then talking about the soundbite, telling you what to think. There's a difference. That's what I keep telling you guys. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. And right now, the left, people who are leaning to the left, they're not speaking their minds. They're not, when they type stuff and they're sharing stuff, of course, when they're sharing, obviously that isn't their brain. It's something else. But they're not, when they're discussing things, they're not voicing what they really think. They're just repeating what they've been told and what they heard. What's the difference between me and them? The difference is what I keep telling you every week. Events are taking place, and you can get on YouTube and you could watch the whole thing start to finish with no cuts, no interruptions, no talking heads, no commentary. Live feed video that has been recorded, because I'm not, I'm working. I'm not home all stinking day. I got to get out of the house. So that's why I watch that stuff and I formulate an opinion. I'm also very interested in a bunch of other stuff, constantly feeding my head. Really, this YouTube is a time suck, man. I could be so much more productive, but I spend so much time watching YouTube. It's crazy. It's like I need a distraction in my brain from what's going on sometimes, just to get away from my own stuff. At any rate, as I told you last week, a lot of it overflows. And that helps me to be more nuanced in my thought processes and, how I speak about things. It's like last week I briefly talked about tariffs and how watching a video about the Japanese watch market turned me on to the historic fact that Japan placed high tariffs on watches coming into the country from Switzerland in about 100 years ago. And that allowed Japan to create that industry within their own country. That was a good thing. So I'm just saying that's why my opinions are coming. That's where they're coming from. They're coming from my own mind based on what I'm seeing. I'm not repeating what I'm hearing somebody else say. From time to time, somebody else says something that, like Gutfeld did this thing where, and I had said it a week or two earlier. What was it? Oh, the idea that it was a good thing that we had Biden for the last 4 years, right? Because now we know how inept they were and how corrupt that was and all the craziness. And it's hard. All these people died. That's bad. Horrible. But it reminded the rest of the country of why we needed to get Trump in here to shake things up and get this back on track. Now, the hat today, I forgot to look at the friggin' thing again. Is because I wanted to get into this with the patriotism thing. Well, at least as far as kind of how I see it. It's my own opinion. How the country was really started and who did it. Because I'm getting, you see these comments. It's really interesting. You watch a video on something, excuse me, or something somebody posts. I'm really congested today. And then you read the comments. And it's amazing. You could just see it. You could see the brainwashing that's been going on, and it's a real shame. There's this misconception that we're supposed to be nice to everybody else in the world. We're just supposed to let everybody else walk all over us. Or, they don't like the style. Like there's criticisms of the way the vice president has been talking to, foreign dignitaries or something, or Trump's style. I got news for you people. That's American. There's nothing more American than being rude. Just friggin' own it already. That's how it is. This country was started, really, the whole revolution kicked off in Boston because, honestly, a bunch of jerks, law-breaking jerks, bullies, bootleggers, the whole deal, these are our founding fathers. That's who they were. They were breaking the law, man. They were totally going against the crown. And, we all know now that they had a right to do it. But the way they were doing it, come on, man. Sam Adams and his boys were going out burning businesses down, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Of course, this happened, destroying property. John Hancock was a bootlegger, Paul Revere and those guys, these were merchants. They wanted to keep their money. Of course, the taxation without representation, all that stuff was happening, but so much vandalism, terrorism in a way, was being caused by these rebels, these rebel rousers in Boston, that England sent an army over to deal with it. And that's what started the whole thing. And only about 3% of the population participated in the war, just as today. And by the way, that's worldwide. Really, about 3% of humans have the balls to care about something bigger than themselves, put their lives on the line, and be willing to have that experience for what they believe is a greater good. And oftentimes we know it's just they've been brainwashed into it. But that's how it is. That's just the truth. It's the truth. Thank God they did it. Thank God for a bunch of jerks. Thank God for a bunch of bully jerks, guys that wanted to have things their own way. Thank God for that. Because the whole idea of America is individualism. You having the liberty and the freedom to live your life the way you see fit. Somehow, it got all spun around and government's been telling you what and how to do things and how to live your life, what you can and can't do, what you can and can't say. That's been a thing lately. Whoa, what? You want free energy? You want free energy right now? Go to all the founding fathers' graves, drive some copper rods right into their caskets, and hook some wires up and hook that up to the grid, because their bodies are spinning at 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. They're so angry about where this country is right now. They all would have been shooting by now, or at least up until this last election. Right now, they're sitting there going, whoa, what, hey, whoa, Trump's one of us. Yeah, because it was, it's the crazy thing, man. This is so crazy. People don't seem to know this. Sam Adams had some money, he lost it, he had businesses that failed, all kinds of things, but Hancock had been a rich guy. a lot of these were wealthy guys, you know, and they wanted to keep their money. It was about them. The greater idea that they sold to the public was because they were poor, they couldn't afford all these things and the taxes, and they were being forced to purchase things that we were producing here. You guys can study the economics of it on your own. But it was very easy for them to sell the idea. And what made it even easier was the way the British Army treated us. I watched The Patriot last night to get myself in the mood for this. I'm a little off. I should have been more animated. A whole bunch of stuff happened this morning with a video I watched about a girl that got ripped off, and another girl was calling me, helping her buy an Astro van. I'm going to do a whole video on that in the next couple days, but it threw off my focus on this video today, so I apologize. But I watched The Patriot last night, and you know it's a fictional movie, but a lot of the things that happen in that film happened. Now, not with those same people, the exact same way or whatever, but what you see the British doing is what they did. And, you know, there's that one scene where all the wounded soldiers, both colonials and Brits, are on the porch of the house, and the dragoons come in and you know, they take their wounded, and then they have all the colonials killed. He says, shoot them. And they do it. So in the movie, they're shooting all these guys. Well, they wouldn't have shot them. They would have bayoneted them. Right, so it would have been even more gruesome. I'm sure that Gibson, when they made that film, he was like, that might be too gruesome. Let's just shoot him. That's where the truth is way more brutal than fiction. I encourage you guys to read about this stuff. There's plenty of books you can read on this. It's like World War II. You read the stuff written by the guys that were there. And it always is better than the movies. It's way more stupendous and unbelievable. But it's what it is. And it's almost as if they think if they put the truth in film that people won't believe it. But we should be doing the truth. As I say all the time, I'm not hung up on being right about every little detail of what I'm saying, which is why I always remind you, as I did in the beginning of this, don't hang everything that you believe on what I'm saying. Look at this up yourself and get into it, man. I'm just saying those guys they didn't call them rebels for no reason. Our national anthem was written during a friggin' battle. The bombs bursting in air. I mean, look, we are a warrior culture. The Americans are, and they see us like that. You know, I was in Greece. I went to Europe 5 times in the late 90s. My cousins in Greece, there's this one. He's not actually blood related, but it's like Italians. You know, everybody's your cousin. You grow up in a neighborhood, they're your cousin. They're at your house every day, they're your cousin. They're not really your cousin, but you call them your cousin. And there's a guy like that. And he was kind of militant, socialist. It's fucking crying fucking shame. But he and I were arguing one night in a bar in Thessaloniki, I think we were. No. We were in a little mountain town, Napoli. Up there in the mountains in not far from the village that my house is in. And he was telling me how they consider the American military a mercenary army because we get paid so well. So that is how a lot of Europeans see us. And by the way, in the 90s was when all this crazy stuff was happening. You know, I posted a great video. Hopefully I'll remember to share it. Let's write it down here. Share UN video, NATO video. I'll do this in the description probably. Maybe I'll pin it at the end. I might pin the tail of the gun video. But I posted this great video the other day. Blinken, I think the guy's name is. I can't remember, but he was having this talk where he laid it out of how NATO and the U.S. are responsible for the Ukraine war. Because, you know, at the fall of the Berlin Wall, I've said this before, there was this deal that happened where all those Eastern Bloc countries that Russia had occupied could have their own sovereignty, but they were not supposed to join NATO. And then we went in there and helped them to join NATO. So we helped NATO encroach upon the land surrounding Russia. All Russia wanted was a buffer because they were afraid. They could see the rise of Europe. Now, so the whole truth is spun around here. And I'm not a Putin lover. That's not what's going on here. This is just the truth. I want you to watch this video. I will put a link. It will either be at the end of this video or it's going to be in the description. All right? Watch that. And I was there. I went back and forth all those times, and I was in Paris. This is not what my notes are about at all. I was in Paris for the millennia. That's a great story. It was a fun time. A little crazy. We were at the Eiffel Tower there, right across the Seine, by this tree. We met a bunch of college kids, American exchange students. I was with this girlfriend of mine, Michelle. She was a French Canadian, and she spoke French. It's a great story. And then later that night, like after the thing happened at the Eiffel Tower, they dispersed the crowd. They actually used CS gas. I know what CS gas is. I know exactly what it smells like. It was diluted, but that's what they used to move the crowd. And the whole city en masse went to the Champs-Élysées. And it was bonne année, bonne année all night long until the sun came up. But at one point, the guys I was hanging out with, they were yelling for me. And the girls were yelling my name, Mike, Mike. And I went over, and they had gotten in a brawl with like 8 or 10 or more of these. Turned out they were these Algerian kids, like 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. And I just went into the fray, into the melee. And I was just grabbing these guys and just throwing them. I was like 33 years old, something like that. Pretty strong guy. Boom, boom, I'm throwing people. And this Algerian kid pulls a knife, starts slashing at me like this. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. That's when I knew Paris was screwed. The end of that was very simple. I showed zero fear whatsoever. I was in a really good fighting stance. I said, come on, motherfucker. Let's go. I'm going to stick that knife right up your ass. Let's go. And fortunately, he believed me. He put the knife down, put his head down, he walked away. I don't know that I would have really stuck it up his ass, but he would have been hurting. True story. Tons of witnesses. I actually have it on film. I have a VH tape of that night. I got to figure out a way to get that on transferred to a DVD or something. You guys would really enjoy that. The knife part isn't in it. It's just me. It might have been at the end of that, or me just getting into the fight. And my friend who was filming, I think it was too much for her. I don't know what was going on, but that's a fun night. Anyhow, from there, I took the Orient Express to through Germany and Budapest and all that. And then I ended up in Slovakia. And I had a buddy there at the time he was a career Marine. He was the only U.S. Marine in the whole country, along with a couple Army guys and some Air Force guys. And they were there helping Slovakia get their military up to par to join NATO. Now, at that time, I wasn't politically savvy. I didn't realize, like, wait a second, why are we doing that? We're not supposed to be doing that. Russia had a deal with Europe. But my friend was part of screwing over Russia. So we've basically been poking the bear all this time. If you ask me, Putin has actually been kind of cool. It's bad. I know it's bad. It's horrible to say that. But I'm telling you, do your research on that and know the history. I'm not saying he's right, but he ain't wrong either. That's all I'm saying. At any rate, I just wanted to talk about those little things, the individual liberty thing. You know, it's funny. Heath Ledger was in The Patriot, and I knew this guy. It's really interesting the way life is sometimes. So there's this guy, Matt Amato, and Matt is, I think he was like a producer, director, talented guy, did music videos. He had an office above the shop, Vienna Woods, over here on La Brea. And that was right at the time I was working there with Janusz, learning how to do Biedermeier furniture. I did a video on my channel about that. I did this really unique piece of Biedermeier. Biedermeier is veneered all over the place. At any rate, I would go up there and talk to Matt from time to time. And Heath had just died recently, and he was still really distraught over it. They were best friends. They were roommates. And he told me a lot of personal stuff about him and Heath and all that. It's really interesting. Actually, funny story. That was I've told you guys this before. At that time, even still, I'm open to the idea of maybe doing some acting or something if I was approached. I highly doubt that will ever happen because of a lot of stuff I just said right up until this moment. A lot of people be pissed about that. And I've scared a lot of people in the film industry back in the day. Those are stories. Some of them are here. Look up my Hitman story. It's another good video. You guys will get a kick out of that. At any rate, at that time, he was talking to me about the acting thing. And I was like, well, yeah, I would do it. He goes, I could hook you up with Billy Zane. And so then I was privy to this crazy conversation that took place right in front of me where he calls Billy Zane on the phone. He puts me on the phone with him. Well, he describes me to Billy Zane. He describes me as, he says, look, I'm hanging out with this guy, Mike. He's a cool guy. He's the Russell Crowe type, only prettier. I'm sitting here like, what did you just say? And in such a weird way. It really seemed like, to me, and I was a man at the time. I had to be in my 40s or something. And it was almost like they were treating me like a kid and Billy Zane was some kind of chicken hawk. That's how it seemed to me. That shit goes on here. At any rate, that's my Heath Ledger story, Matamato, who was a nice guy. I'd love to reconnect with him, actually. And that also made me think, again, the Patriot, Heath Ledger, colonial times. There was this guy, Craig Ross Jr., and he's a director, producer, writer. He ended up directing a lot of TV crime, CSI stuff. I was in Craig's first movie ever. Very, very low budget flick. And, he went his way, I went mine, and no big deal. And around 2010, I got on Facebook and we reconnected and we met for coffee. And I told him, so I have this idea for a film about a true story that took place during the Revolutionary War. And it involves black men. Craig's a black guy. And I said, they were free black men and who went in and they did this, they had to capture a British general. I think it was General Lee was the guy. I think that's right. No. That was the guy the British had. So the British had captured this guy, General Lee, at Brandywine in New Jersey. He went against his own rules. He went to this pub with a little security detachment just to, get drunk and get laid. And the British caught him in his underwear and imprisoned him. But prison for him was basically like a hotel room. They were feeding him good food. He was an aristocrat, a general. And they had this deal at the time where we could do a prisoner exchange for, it had to be equal or greater rank. So we needed a general. And there was this general, his name escapes me at the moment. He was up in Rhode Island. He was a real jerk. He was breaking down people's porches and burning it for fuel to keep his troops warm and all that. I mean, the stuff the British did was horrible. And so this group of black guys, they were like militiamen. I think they were led by a white guy. There's this great story of them putting burlap sacks on the oars and paddling, past the ships and getting to this building. And this black guy, he named himself Prince something or other. Black guy's always been the same with that, self-inflating. It's very funny. And apparently he was some big guy with a bald head. He rammed the door twice with his head to knock the door down. And they captured this British general in his underwear. And then they used him to get General Lee back. There's a lot more to this story. But I was telling Craig, and he said, look, if you do a treatment, write up a treatment for me, I'll help you develop it. So I did. And my treatment was like a story. I kind of laid out a storyline. And then I included links to the real history of the story so he could just hit the link and read on his own a little bit. It was just an idea, a basic outline. But the way I started is I pictured Louis Gossett Jr. and Morgan Freeman. And I older guys. And I imagined them many, many years after the war at some pub, maybe we'll say 1820 or something like that. And veterans get together every year or so, like a reunion, like 101st Airborne reunion every year or something. And I imagined this young kid sweeping the floors, overhearing them, talking to them, and then they start telling the story. And I bring up the 3/5 clause. And the Three-Fifths Clause was not about saying that black people weren't equal to white people. That's what propagandists and liberals, professors have been telling kids for years to reinforce this thing in their minds that's totally not true. The Three-Fifths Clause was established in an attempt to end slavery because in the South, slaves outnumbered free people, and the governments in the southern colonies, states now at this time, um, representation in Washington is based on state population. So they were counting slaves to inflate their numbers to have more power in Washington and Congress and all that, because people wanted to end slavery. That was always talked about, always discussed in the letters between people and everything else. Not all the founding fathers owned slaves. Some did, all did not. All right, Ben Franklin never owned a slave. John Adams never owned a slave. So, and there was always free black people. There was free black people that were merchants, that owned businesses. George Washington had a friend. They say he was maybe half black, who owned a pub in New York, and that guy actually was a spy for Washington, because after when the British took New York, they were hanging out there, so he would get a lot of intel and pass that to Washington. It's amazing, like the true history of how the country kicked off involved even American Indians, right? Like the natives that were here. So, we had those people, we had black people, white people, we had people that were, and back then they broke it down. Like white didn't mean so much as like what country your people came from. It's wild, man. It's just crazy. I wasn't treated as a white person in New Jersey as a kid because I was Greek and my dad talked funny. You hear what I'm saying? So it's just so much craziness. At any rate, I'm going. None of this is in my notes, but I had this idea, and the Three-Fifths Clause was put in. What it is it's Washington was saying, look, you can't, or the guys in the North were saying to the guys in the South, you can't count your slaves. They're not free people. You're not going to give them any say in anything. They won't be governed under the same rules as free men. It doesn't make any sense. We want to free them. So they said, we'll allow you to count them as 3/5 of a whole for the purposes of enumeration. That's what it says, for the purposes of enumeration. Purposes of enumeration means counting. That's what that was. So now you know. Now you know. It was never about saying that black people weren't equal to whites. It was for the purposes of counting the votes so that the South couldn't have more power, more representation in Washington because most people wanted to end slavery. So we got that out of the way. When I sent the treatment to Craig, he had a problem with that. Because my idea was, and I'm wrong. I was wrong at the time. I could have taken it out, but I was really big on the real history of things. I kept telling him, dude, why don't we make a movie or a series or something where we just put the truth out there? The freaking truth, man. This is what I told you is the truth. And he could not wrap his head around it. He would, and I sent him everything. I even sent him the Constitution, everything, like what it is, purposes of enumeration, broken down by scholars, like people have written about this. We know what the truth of this is. And because he was brainwashed when he was in college with this stuff, he just cannot get past his programming. And then that created a rift between us in my mind, and I couldn't work with him because I care about the truth. Keep in mind, I realize I could be wrong sometimes. I'm okay with that. If you want to correct me on something, feel free to do so. You give me the pertinent information that I can study up on, and then I realize, oh, I've been saying this wrong all this time, and then I will change what I've been saying. At any rate, that was the end of that. I just had those two thoughts last night, because again, the Patriot, and I just jotted them down. And I was telling you guys, I watched the Doge interview with Brett Baer, which was great, because Elon's there with all these guys. And then there was the Doge hearings with NPR. Did you guys watch that? Holy Toledo, man. Holy cow, that blonde woman, the CEO of NPR, what a horrible human being. They were just hitting her. Was it Cornyn? Senator Cornyn? Just hit her with her own tweets of how much of a racist she is. Oh my God, that was wild. And I was watching Gutfeld, and they showed a clip. Now, this is news. Like, okay, I love Gutfeld, but they'll sensationalize something. They'll take something a little bit out of context for the sake of a laugh, because that's not a real news show. It's just about getting you to laugh. But they did this thing, and they got me in a way, because I watched these, whatever it was, 6 seconds or less, or 10 seconds maybe, of this one guy hammering her with something. I thought, I got to go watch that, because each senator has like 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 47 seconds, usually, something like that. So I went and watched it, and what they had showed on Gutfeld, he absolutely said, and it happened, but not all of his 5 minutes was about that. It actually kind of bored me a little bit, but I just wanted to make the point to you. But you should watch the whole thing. It's almost 3 hours of NPR getting hit with, we don't need you, so we don't need to be giving them federal money. It's pretty amazing. I went down deep rabbit hole on NPR a while ago. I think I might have talked about it here, with about the federal funds and how it goes to the states, and then which radio stations get money, and it's pretty crazy. But we know that a lot of what's on there is just left-wing propaganda. I've complained about NPR for years. I blamed it for ruining a relationship I had during the first term of Trump, because she was listening to NPR all day. It was nonsense. That's episode 2 of the one that got away. I blame NPR. You might want to watch that one. That's a good one. That's a funny one. Yeah. And I mean, this thing that I said a moment ago about the left, they're just repeating what they're hearing all the time. They're not having their own thoughts. Part of it is, they're just more upset that if anything good happens, anything that's good, the greater good for the greater number of people, they're more upset that they're not the ones who will get the credit for it. That's what it boils down to. This is like LBJ. Like President Eisenhower wanted to do this thing, and he tried to pass like a Bill of Rights. What is it? The Civil Rights Act. He had his own form of that. And no Democrats would vote for it. Democrats were that was the party that had the KKK, right? It was all Democrats, and they would not allow that to happen. But when LBJ came along, and now we know LBJ, right, was part of this whole cabal of guys that took out JFK. And there's this famous photo that recently got posted where they're on the plane, and LBJ is getting sworn in, and Jackie's there, still with the blood on her dress from her husband getting killed. And LBJ is turning around smiling and winking with another guy in the background winking at him like that. It's a setup. It's crazy. At any rate, crazy. So just wanted to throw that out for you. Oh, well, let's get to this first. Yeah, so notes, I'm getting better at this, I think. I don't know. U.S. NATO responsible for Ukraine war. Oh, okay. So, J.D. Vance. It's so funny the way the media just attacks things. They have to attack anything that they think makes Trump or Vance or any Republican or conservative look good. They've got to paint it in a negative light, especially in the comments. And we know that a lot of these people are funded. A lot of the people making comments are funded. There's the whole bot thing going on. But I wanted to see this because J.D. Vance is a Marine. He's a friggin' Marine. And he went out there with Marines on a range, and he was shooting and everything else, and they were taking him down like, oh, he wasn't in combat, and he was just a journalist, and da-da-da-da-da. Shut the hell up. Shut up. You know what the hell? Were you a Marine? If you weren't a Marine, then shut the hell up. Because every Marine is a rifleman first. Every single one of them. Marine Corps boot camp, if you have a job, if you're a pogue, person other than grunt, that doesn't mean you don't go to boot camp. It all starts with boot camp. That's the Marine basic training, man. That is where they get it in your brain. They train you mentally, prepare you to be a professional killer. Period. period, end of friggin' story, and every Marine qualifies with the rifle. They do all the stuff. They throw hand grenades, they do the gas chamber, they teach you how to kill people with your bare hands, the whole thing, all right? So J.D. Vance went through all that. He didn't see combat. Fine, no big deal. But I will say, he didn't look super comfortable. And they had him in this rig, so I could pick it apart a little bit. They had him in a chest rig. They had magazines, up here. And he had some pouch down here in front of him. And then he goes to get in the prone position. And I'm looking at that going, there's no fucking way he's comfortable there. You got to open that stuff up. You can't lay on that little thing, in your lower abdomen like that. And with the gear on, I could tell his sight picture couldn't have been great on the rifle because the way he had his gear set up, he didn't need to do that. But, they put that stuff on him. That's how it is. And it's fine. He hit the target. But it wasn't about that. It was about the morale of the Marine Corps going, hey, we got one of ours as the vice president of the United States of America, and he's a badass. And he is. He when you listen to him speak, the way he speaks, directly, unafraid, unabashed, say anything to anyone, boom. I got a lot of respect for that guy. So we might have a Marine as president one day here, which would be pretty stinking cool as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I could pick that apart just seeing how that was going, but overall it was fine. But the criticism was stupid. It was like Bush. The second. When he would show up in his flight suit, right, or flight jacket or something, because he just flew in a friggin' jet, a fighter jet, and like, oh, he never did anything. He flew fighter jets in the National Guard. He actually did that. It was so funny. People would say he was stupid. I got news for you. They don't put people, dumb people, in the cockpit of fighter planes. You can't be stupid and fly a multi-million-dollar aircraft. So, it's always this thing that they do. And then I started thinking about Hunter Biden. Biden wasn't, this thing like when they want to knock Trump or something, he was never in the military, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll tell you something about Trump, which is interesting. 6 years of military school. And while he was there, he was a star athlete. Like he gets it. He appreciates it. It's interesting to me. I know everyone wants to bring up the bone spurs. Whatever. Did Clinton go to Vietnam? What branch of service was Barack Obama in? Maybe the Kiss Army? Maybe? It's this. They never want to look back at themselves. It's crazy. And people on the right do it too. We should all just knock this shit off. Just get to the truth, everything. Just talk about it normally. Everything will be fine. So yeah, I've been a little frustrated this week with some of this stuff. It's just been a thing. And when it comes to the Hunter Biden thing, man, I mean, the way I look at it, and I said it at the time, I remember telling my friends, and I think about it with Bush the second too. You think about Bush, like his dad was the head of the CIA at the time, right? When a lot of crazy stuff was going on. These guys were all in the know of all the horrible things they were getting us involved in. And these guys are growing up in that. And I think of Hunter Biden, I look at his actions. You have to hate your father. Hate your father. Despise your father to do the things that he did. Filming himself with the crack and the guns and the horrors and everything else. You got to hate your father. You know that can get out. Then he leaves the laptop to be found. You got to hate your dad. Why would you hate your dad in that situation? Well, gee whiz, I wonder why. I mean, you have no choice. His dad was giving him these jobs around the world, getting paid all this money to go to places and really work deals to bring in money that went to his dad, and other family members. All the family members of the Biden family were totally corrupt, taking in money for influence, especially when he was the vice president under Obama. He must have wanted to take his dad down. Leaving the cocaine in the White House, we know that's where that came from. Let's not pretend we don't know. Screwing his brother's wife, getting her. That wasn't her. He got pregnant. It was some stripper. He got pregnant. They want to deny the fact that the kid exists, that it was even his kid, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy. But you can understand it if you think about it. Imagine you're born into a family. You got no choice who you were born into, and your whole family's a bunch of corrupt jerks ripping off the country, and then you're forced into it. And like, he's an artist. He's artistic. I'm not saying I like it. I will say it's easy to make fun of it. Like, okay, he's blowing paint through a straw, and that's more like a craft. Like, pretty much anybody could do it. And of course, that was just a way to get money. That was like, okay, here's this painting, give us millions of dollars. Where'd that painting go? It's in a basement somewhere, maybe in a dumpster. Do we think people kept them? Who the hell knows? But really, when I looked at it, I didn't mind it so much. I thought it was kind of interesting. Nowhere near the money. That's more like the thing that you buy at a swap meet, or you're on Venice. You're walking along Venice Beach down there, and somebody's doing that, and you could buy it for $30. That's fine. You could put that in your bathroom for $30. Fine. But the point I wanted to make is, to do that sort of thing, to produce art, you're a sensitive person. I'm an artist. I have a sensitive side to me. I know I don't show it that often, but it's there. I think he's actually pretty much probably a pretty sensitive guy who's forced to do things that he found so repulsive, it manifested itself in him becoming a drug addict, and a scumbag. It's psychological. That's how that stuff works, man. Updates, VA thing. So interesting thing happened. You guys gave me a lot of good stuff. Somebody mentioned the needing a nexus report, which would be me going and seeing another head shrinker to put in the file to put forth to say, hey, yes, another guy agrees. Your behavior was influenced by what happened to you while you were in the Corps. I actually have a client. We're not best friends or anything like that, but he happens to be a psychologist or psychiatrist. I always get them mixed up. This guy could be both. He has multiple degrees. He's an interesting character. I've talked about him before. I talked to him about it, and he says, Mike, I've known you for over a decade. He says, you don't just have PTSD. He says, you have CPTSD, which is a complex form. Like, he went into this whole thing, because I've talked to him about this stuff before, and what's really amazing is that this guy, he's an old guy. His father was a Marine and fought on Iwo Jima. And his father was a tiny little guy, and he's told me this before, but he kind of went into it with me this week. He said his dad suffered the same thing. He said obviously he had issues with combat and everything, but he says his dad's biggest problems was how he was treated while he was in the Corps by other Marines. So it's a thing. He went into this whole thing, which is something I never thought of before. This was just my own experience. But the military can really screw you up. If you got a bad command, everything is from the top down. If you got a bad commander at a base somewhere and they allow their NCOs to do all these horrible things, they could be ruining people's lives for the rest of their life mentally, just because of that. And it's pretty amazing. He went into this whole diatribe about it. I was kind of blown away. I didn't expect any of that. So that's an interesting thing. However, I spoke with the guy who's going to be helping me on this, and we really got down to the nitty gritty on it finally in a phone conversation. Whenever it was, last week, Monday maybe, and I explained to him I was going to say I got the form. It's right here, so I could send the form in where I request the results of my appointments, my meetings, my evaluations, the one with the ankle one and then the PTSD one, because I'd like to have that, because we know that those were in my favor. They granted me the PTSD thing, but then some bureaucrat just said no. And the reasoning was just your standard fare, like taken out of the textbook, boom. And this really pissed off this dude. Now, as I've mentioned before, this guy used to do this for a living. He's a veteran, he was in the Army, and he was a badass in the Army too. Then he started working for the VA. He became a VA raider. They send him to school for that. And after this had happened, I told him I was going to send this out. He goes, dude, that's going to take you months to get. Explain to me again how all this went down. So I told him. And he goes, well, this doesn't, what they're telling us is nothing. There's no reason there. They're just giving you the standard thing. They're not breaking it down why. And then he told me some other things. He threw some numbers out at me that are very positive. And the thing I like about this guy, he's so confident. He is so confident because he does this. He regularly gets people 100% VA rating. So he's so confident. He goes, don't worry. He goes, I'm going to file all this. It's going to get taken care of without me doing anything else right now. So I'm still going to send away for those files because I just want to have them for myself. And then I'll keep you guys posted on what goes on with that. I suppose that's about it. We'll just stop talking. I'll keep this one short today. Like I said, I got a little thrown off this morning watching a video, and I'm going to do a whole video on this. Maybe I'll do it next. Maybe I'll do 2 videos today. I don't want to get too into it right now because I'm going to do a video on it, but just so you guys know what's coming. These are previews. Something that makes me laugh. My sister and I, who's not with us anymore, my sister Catherine, when we were real little, we'd see commercials, and we always laughed that they would show scenes for the Flintstones. We thought that was just a ridiculous idea. Like, it's a freaking cartoon, and they're reruns already, and we've seen them all already. But they're going to show us the scenes to get us all jazzed about what's going to happen on the Flintstones. The Flintstones, freaking cartoon. So I'm giving you some scenes here. What it is going to be about, it's going to be about women with old vehicles and that sort of thing, and getting ripped off by mechanic shops, that sort of thing. I'm not saying all mechanics are bad, but there's like 3 women right now that I'm aware of in my life that have been getting screwed over. And the worst part is that I try to help them, and they don't listen. They don't want to listen to me for some reason, as if I don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. So just with the advice, I'm not some top-notch certified mechanic or something. I don't need to be for the advice I'm giving. And this morning, I was on the phone multiple times and multiple texts with a woman who's kind of become a friend of mine. I've known her for several years now. She's in Colorado, in the Denver area. And she just bought an Astro van this morning. So we'll talk about that in this upcoming video. And I'm going to be asking if there's anybody in the Denver area, they're Astro van people, for a little help. And we're going to look for a good mechanic there because she kind of got screwed over with our last van. We'll get into that in another one. What else can I tell you about? Well, there is, we'll change hats here because Carla and I spoke. Remember, Carla made the caps here couple weeks ago. So we're going to work on these caps again. I'm not stoked. I like the way this pattern looks. This is a herringbone twill. It's not a railroad pattern. That would be a hickory stripe. But this material, it's doubled up on this one, but it's a little too thin and a little too soft. We need more of a canvas to pull this cap off better. So she's going to do that, and those things will be out there at some point. It's just not a thing that's been a priority. I've just had too many other things going on. I guess that's about it, really. I mean, the bicycle stuff is kind of happening again. I did ride the bike 3 times this week to the shop. I feel great. And so that's going to be my new thing, is starting to do that more. And I'll probably get some more walking in and start throwing some weights around, because I got to get my physique into better shape here. I watch these videos. I watch all my videos at least once, and I look at myself and I'm like, dude, you got to get it together, man. You got to get it together. And then there's going to be some watch stuff coming. There's a bunch of stuff on that. And I think that's about it. Let's just end this. I don't want to ramble for no reason. I do appreciate you guys being here. I had ideas in my mind about how I wanted to crack you guys up, and none of that happened in this video. I kind of went off the rails in the beginning. So forgive me. I treat this like it's a learning process still. I will say that on that, in the beginning, when I read the email with the Rush Limbaugh thing, Sabo, my pal Sabo, who wrote the book, he put me in his book. He was a huge, 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 huge Rush Limbaugh fan. So much so that he did a painting of Rush. And I want to see if I can find this real quick in the book here. If you guys haven't bought this yet, you should get them. He's only selling these for $100 a piece right now, and the price is going to go up. I think he only has about 40 left of the latest run. I think he's done 3 runs of these now. I think he gets 100 at a time. And, he autographed mine to me and all that. And I'm in the book, by the way. I'm the only guy that is in the book of all the people that worked with him. Excuse me. And this is me in the book. I'm up here. And everything that's written on that page was written by me. So you guys might want to check that out. It's pretty cool. All right, let me pat myself on the back here. My life has been kind of funny, like the people I've met and hobnobbed with, and artists. I've been painted before. It's weird, man. I don't know how this stuff happens, because really, I pretty much keep to myself. I spend pretty much every night home alone. I'm all alone at home. And, come on, where is this thing? I'm looking for the Rush painting. There it is. So, Sabo actually painted this. Well, this is when he did the, this is just one, this is a poster that he printed. And then he put it, he printed it and then he put it up on walls all over the city. So, but he did a painting of it, and he did a frame, and everybody sent cigar bands in, and he put them all over the frame. But this is a really, so if you're a Rush Limbaugh fan, I know a bunch of you are, you can go to unsavoryagents.com, and you can buy this as a poster for your house, and you can order it in several different sizes, and it's printed on like archival, really thick stuff. The ink is great and everything else. And I just wanted to throw that at you. And since I was just talking about Hunter Biden, I just saw the one, I think one of his greatest images, oh, here it is, that he did was this one. And you could get that as a poster too, right here. Hunter Biden screwing the USA, right there. So, as you know, Sabo is a conservative street artist. He's no joke. So, look for the book. Buy it. It's the only way you're going to be able to get it, unless it starts doing so well that a bigger publisher picks it up and decides to produce it for him, which would be wonderful. But because of the imagery in there and the stuff that he wrote, it's going to be tough for him. The one good thing is, and I said this when I did the video on the book, and I tried to drive that home with him the other day because he didn't even realize he was doing it. It goes to what I was talking about with the media earlier. What I always say is how the media shows you something, and then they narrate over it in a way to get you emotionally irate, so that then they can program your mind with a bunch of bullshit. Now, with these images, some of these images are, intense in this book and filthy, disgusting, a lot of it. So it's easy for them to go, look at this disgusting conservative doing this stuff. Okay, sure. But because Sabo did a book, everything's put into context. So he writes pretty well, actually, multiple paragraphs for all these hits. And he explains to you what inspired the imagery and what that's really about. So it can't be taken out of context anymore. If you get the book, you look at it and you go, oh, now I understand it. Now I know why he chose to go that dark or that graphic for this particular reason on this particular point with this particular image with these particular people being used. You understand? So once again, like I always tell you, you got to do your own research. Don't just keep repeating what you hear other people tell you, including me. Oh, there's another thing. I was going to pause it and show you. I'm going to see if I can remember it. It's a funny meme. It's kind of almost mean-spirited or crazy, but it's well, I could probably read it to you. It's on the phone, so I can't read it to you. But it's like, it starts with a premise, so it's a bit of a straw man thing to get you to the point, which is along the lines of, the left want to start a civil war. But the truth is that if the left put down their arms, there would be peace. And if the conservatives wanted war, there would be no liberals. This is like the whole thing with the existence of Israel, right? If the Muslims put down their arms, there would be peace. If Israel put down their arms and didn't have any arms, they would be wiped off the face of the earth. So, just saying. All right, that's it. Have a great day. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I'm having 10 more things pop into my head, but we'll just end it here. Have a great night. Be kind to one another. Try to help each other out. Try to uplift one another. And I'll catch you all in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this. I got the best subscribers. You know who you are. All right, I'm done talking. A bunch of more stuff popped in my head. If I don't stop, it will go on for another hour. I might just do another video. So maybe check back in a few minutes.